All right, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to get kicked off here. The webinar that you are attending today is an introduction to Trimble Stratus. I'm Kelsey Saya. I work with the Propeller team, and I wanted to take a moment to introduce our speaker today, Michael Scott. He also works with the Propeller team. So Mike is a senior account executive at Propeller Aero, and he covers the central U.S. and Canada, along with Latin and South America. He works with mining, aggregates, and construction companies to implement UAV survey programs on their sites and brings over 5 years of experience from the construction and mining industry to help sites measure and manage themselves. We leverage emerging technologies on site to reduce surveyor risk while increasing productivity, and Mike helps these sites save time and money with efficient workflows and easy-to-use solutions. So Mike is going to walk us through an introduction to Trimble Stratus today. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A section over on the right-hand side of your screen there, and we'll get to them at the end of this webinar. Thanks.
All right, everybody. That was a pretty good introduction. Thanks, Kelsey. So, yeah, what we're going to cover today, folks, is, again, an introduction to the Trimble Propeller Partnership. We'll quickly ask a quick attendee poll, just gauging the audience on what your guys' experience is with drones, and then talk through the evolution of drones, why ground control is critical, some of the Trimble Stratus integrations with other Trimble products, and then, really, what we're trying to do around progress, productivity, quality, cost, safety, few customer workflows, and then we're going to open it up to a Q&A for you guys to ask some questions. You'll have myself answering some, Kelsey be helping me out, and then we also have some folks from the Trimble team. If you're familiar with Mr. Jim Greenberg, he'll be on the keys typing away. So again, Kelsey did a really good introduction there, but yeah, my name is Michael Scott. I am the senior account executive here at Propeller, one of the first hires in the Denver office. That's where we're located, real close to Trimble, to make sure that we're being working as closely as we can together. So we're serving about 2,500 companies that are using Trimble Stratus with over 65,000 surveys, over 120 countries. Really, no longer is it the fact of when a drone or, if a drone is going to be on a job site, but it's just when is that drone going to show up and who's going to be using it. So first, we'll start with that attendee poll. And this will just ask you a few questions regarding, what your familiarity is with drones and if you're currently using drones. So if you don't mind just quickly answering that, we'll get some answers around, kind of what to talk about here. So we got quite a few folks answering here. Looks like a majority of you thus far are saying, yes, you currently use drones in your operations, but you're not familiar with the product. So I think that's really good. What we'll talk about today is kind of a high level, specifically around the surveying aspects of drones that you can bring to the table. So first, talking about the evolution of drones. So Propeller was started in about 2014. And really what happened is people had grand ideas of what they wanted to do with drones. However, expectations versus capabilities were kind of far, misaligned there. We had drones that could fly well, would stay in the air, great. But inaccurate GPS and low quality cameras really resulted in kind of poor product on the output side of things when we're talking about, photogrammetry and, drone surveying. As we got into 2016, 2017, what we were able to do is we really had, kind of two camps. We had really, really high accuracy, high price drones. And then we had, what most of us could afford, still being, a quality drone with a better camera. And so we were more reliant on ground control and things like that. And we'll cover that a little bit later. But it took us a step closer to what we could do with the data, but still a little bit far off if we're going to consider this kind of survey work with drones. As we step into 2018, 2019, really that's where we see expectations and capabilities run pretty much parallel to each other, if not intersecting. What we were able to do is get a really high accurate drone for a low price. And then, with the help of both the Propeller team and the Trimble team, we're able to build a product that aligns exactly with what a lot of our customers were asking about around high accuracy surveys done quicker than they could do it before. So that's what we'll be covering today. When we talk about a lot of this stuff, the industry mindset has kind of shift around this kind of work. So photogrammetry as a science, what we're doing is we're taking still 2D photos and turning them into 3D models. And with that, a lot of folks had relied on third parties to do that, whether that was manned aircraft or simply a contractor coming out and doing that for you. But as we've seen this progress over the last, 4 to 5 years, what we see is folks want to do this in-house, right? The drones fly themselves. You have products like Trimble Stratus to do the processing, and you're just getting accurate surfaces faster than you ever could before. Next thing, in order to make that valuable, is bringing accuracy to the table. Without accuracy, we're just making pretty pictures. And, I don't know how many of you guys there just want a job photo, but none of the customers I deal with are terribly interested with just that kind of stuff. The next thing is real time and scalable. If I'm starting a drone program today and I'm doing monthly flights, we oftentimes see customers go from monthly to weekly to even twice a day, as they grow their program. So looking at that and getting that data back as quickly as we can, and ultimately making that data get back to the field, back to the office, wherever it needs to be around shareable and actionable. So these are kind of where we see the industry at. This is where we see everything drive from are these kind of, 6 categories when we're looking at the industry. So again, back to the kind of the evolution of things, specifically around accuracy, because this is the linchpin in the operation. If we don't give you an accurate surface, there's very little that you can do with it. So, again, when we look back at it, it used to be the geotags only. So geotags only, the drone takes a photo, it has its GPS location associated to that JPEG. With that, we're plus or minus 5 to 7 feet, vertically, horizontally, whatever it may be. If we're doing stockpiles, right, a cone is a cone, doesn't matter where it's at in the world. And so we can still create accurate stockpile measurements, but doing surface to surface comparisons, doing things that's going to drive more insight onto a job site really can't be done without, the next step, which is using GCPs and standalone RTK. So with this, what we've seen, this was, if you guys are familiar with the AeroPoints, this is where this kind of, steps into the market. These are, L1 GPS smart pads. And I think I have an image here later in the slides, but this is, you set 10 of these around a site of about 150 acres, 200 acres. You fly the drone and you make sure none of that stuff goes wrong. And then, we were plus or minus that 0.3. Where we've seen it evolve to is specifically around, on our side of things with the DJI Phantom 4 RTK. DJI is the 800-pound gorilla in the drone world. And so they finally brought to market an affordable, high accuracy drone. And we're consistently seeing 1/10 of a foot or 3 centimeters of accuracy when we're talking about a survey, pretty much as big as it gets. So, if you can fly it with a multi-rotor and instead of a fixed wing, this drone's, pretty much bulletproof when it comes to that stuff. So when I talk about that, as far as what a multi-rotor can fly, obviously that's going to be certain, depending on some of the application, but really, 300 acres, 400 acres, something like that, that'll be just fine for a multi-rotor. So again, when we talk about this, we're talking about the idea of, adding high accuracy GPS to the drone. And what this does is, because we have the high accuracy, geotags of the photos, it allows us to weight the JPEG geotags much better. And so that has come with, if you're familiar with the DJI product line, it's going to be the same Phantom 4 platform. It's just going to have this nice little top hat with the new GPS on board. We here at Propeller and Trimble Stratus, really what we've done is remove the base station from here to get rid of the RTK And we're using the AeroPoint, which is this foam target here, for the PPK workflow. And for those who aren't familiar, we're talking about post-processing kinematics versus real-time kinematics. And the reason why we went with the PPK solution here is, one, you don't have to worry about a connection to a base station. So we have a really robust, like we're flying mine sites with large vertical relief, or, if you're flying a very large site, you don't have to worry about the connection between the drone and the base station. Losing that connection obviously loses your geotags. And so with that, what we do, one AeroPoint on the ground, fly the site, they both independently collect their data, and then we use each of those to do the differential corrections to get you that high accuracy geotags in your local system or any published coordinate system. So if you guys have some more questions on that, I'm sure Jim can get into that a little bit more in the Q&A. But PPK for us has been kind of a game changer in the way that we do our job. So ground control, and specifically AeroPoints. These were built for the industry before we were really focused on guys and gals that were using Trimble products. When we have bad data come in, there's only so much we can do with it. Bad data in, bad data out. It's just as simple as it gets. So what we needed our customers to do is start improving their ground control in order for us to, one, do our job better, and two, deliver more accurate results. And so this was the brainchild of our CEO and one of our guys on the hardware team. There's some really funny photos out there of kind of the version 1 of this being yoga mats and all kind of stuff. But now this is a product that's been on the market for about 4 years. I don't know how many units we've sold, but we sell quite a few of these. And even with the RTK version and the PPK stuff coming out there, we're still seeing these move off the shelves quite a bit, because they're just a very, very simple solution. One button operation. You push that little red button here. Once that red light turns solid, that means it's logging its GPS location. It'll sit there and log its location for 5 hours before it kicks itself off. Solar power, battery runs everything, so there's no ports to charge it. And then you press the button again once you're done collecting a survey, and it uploads that data automatically to your portal. And when I talk about a portal, the Trimble Stratus product is actually a cloud-based processing solution. And so what that is you're going to get, a URL with your company name and a Trimble Stratus login. And from there, everything will be contained on the cloud. So data storage, the data processing, design files, all of that's going to be held online. So you don't have to keep buying removable hard drives if you're doing this kind of work already. And two, if you're trying to share this information with your team, they can easily access this. So that's where these AeroPoints report all of their data, and we can kind of go from there. So the workflow of all this and what we prescribe, and this is specific to the PPK workflow, is you set your AeroPoint in an open area, so not underneath trees, not next to chain link fences. They suffer from multipath just like your base and rover. So set these guys out with a clear observation of the sky. You fly the drone, and this AeroPoint has to be visible from the sky. You fly the drone, and that can be done by importing a KML boundary of the area of interest, or simply drawing it out, using satellite imagery on the controller to, set a bounding box for where this drone is going to operate. From there, the drone flies, I kind of call it like a Roomba path. It's going to autonomously fly itself along that course. And as it runs out of batteries, it'll return home. You swap the batteries, and it'll restart right where it left off. So that's, I think, where a lot of folks get really intimidated, is the idea of like, hey, man, I'm going to have to run these sticks. And the fact of the matter is, you shouldn't have to touch the sticks unless something's going wrong, or you need to land it. But worst case scenario, there's a return to home button on the controller, and it'll fly and land right at your feet where you took off. After you've done the data capture, so we got the AeroPoints on the ground, the drone's flown, got its images and landed. You take the SD card out of the drone, you upload your AeroPoints, and then you upload everything to us and our team of photogrammetrists who get to work on it. So in 24 hours or less, we're going to turn you around a 3D model. So that's going to be an ortho photo and a digital elevation model. We'll have it filtered. So your point cloud will be filtered with some of the trees, equipment, and things like that taken out. And then you're going to have a handful of tools to start to run some, real like high level data interrogation. So this is where, we kind of go next, is looking at collaborating across teams. So what we've seen is that as more technology comes to a job site, it's great at what we're able to do with it. People's jobs are expedited in the way they're able to do things. We get more accurate solutions with, less and less work. However, there's still an information gap there. There still becomes the data, the person who has the data and the person who has the questions. And so what we're trying to do here with the Trimble family and Trimble Stratus is create a shared source of truth. So the work site, a contractor on site, and the home office all have a single source to look at, make decisions from, and kind of build off, what they see, from the day before, rather than either having to wait, a day, 2 days on a topo, or, waiting on a third-party surveyor to get out there, all that. We're trying to bring that so that everyone has the ability to access this data when they need it. And going back to kind of what we see is this bottleneck again, where it's data inputs, whether it's laser scanner, basin rover, let's say LiDAR scans, whatever it may be. You have all this data, but you still have the site surveyor who's one man who can only answer so many questions. And so even though the data is readily available, getting that flow of data to the folks who need it, site engineers, site managers, field teams, it's still seeing, and being very difficult. So what we've tried to do, again, this is with the whole Trimble product suite, is bringing that data to a management platform and having folks answer their questions themselves. So if an engineer wants to know, hey, how, silt fence, square foot of concrete laid today, things like that, they can do all that themselves without having that site surveyor take time away from making the next surface. So that's really where the whole Trimble connected site solutions. So Trimble Stratus feeds directly into Trimble Connect. And that's where you in Trimble Business Center can go get remote files. And really the idea here around everything is, as we move towards the future, we're going to take, let's say, machine data, let's say, project schedules, designs, everything that you guys are currently working with in the Trimble family, and be able to push and, drive that data back and forth from your products. So you don't have these data silos where people are going, not only having to capture the data, but manage it. And so now with a connected solution, everyone's going to have access to it. And it's pretty interesting, some of the stuff we're working on, specifically around some of that connectivity. So going back to the product here, and specific the industries we serve. So there's a lot of competitors in the market as far as what we do, and they focus on really all things drones. We have taken a very specific look at the market and said, hey, we're going to build products for really 3 verticals, which is civil construction, mining and aggregates, landfill, and waste. We think that these are areas that, one, we can build products for that are relatively underserved when it comes to drones. And as well as, just the simple utility of them serves it best in these industries. So each one of our folks on the Propeller and Stratus team have expertise in kind of each one of these verticals. So when we're looking at building a product, what we're doing is trying to get 4 or 5 questions answered, which is, hey, progress, productivity, quality, cost, safety. And it's, where am I at now? How fast am I getting it done? Am I doing it to a design? Have I done it on cost, on budget? And can I reduce risk? Each one of these folks, so, you're going to have a different, priority behind this. But really, we try to keep these in mind when we're building the product and building features that, hopefully drive really actionable decisions for you guys. So what made drones kind of commercially viable about 4 years is that whole idea of, hey, I can go fly a stockpile and get that measurement very easily. What we've tried to do is go beyond stockpiles. Not saying that we can't do this, just about everyone can, but really we're trying to drive to a much more advanced feature set to allow that, for a long, now it's upon us as the Trimble Stratus team to build a product that, scratches that itch for you guys. And so what we're trying to do is really build an easy to use solution that allows you to make really all the decisions you need, as well as supporting the product 24/7. So one of the things I didn't mention as we started this was the idea that we have 2 offices here on the propeller side of things that run just about everything we do. We have our Denver office and our Denver support folks. So that's our customer success team. They're the ones that are pretty much going to hold your hand and help you bridge that learning curve as far as, how to fly the drone, where to lay out ground control, what can I do with this product. And then our data processing team, in Australia and areas like that, and what these folks are going to do is they're going to do all things photogrammetry. So they're going to take those 2D images, create 3D models, and troubleshoot that from top to bottom, so you don't have to become a photogrammetrist. Not to say that you can't. I just know a lot of surveyors are already pulling their hair out as far as how much stuff there's needed to be done and how much time they have in the day. So adding that whole photogrammetry layer, or I guess removing that and getting them accurate surfaces, is really important. So so what we're looking at here, everything from the hardware side of things, improving the 24/7 support, and really an easy use product is where we see us getting better and better as we drive forward. So the product today, we're going to look at it in a couple different things. We'll look at it in, from a tools perspective here. And then we're also going to look at it from a customer case study side of things. So we have a ton of case studies. I know Trimble puts out a few every once in a while. And then there's Propeller. If you go to the propelleraero.com and our blog page, we have a handful of case studies and tools things. But everything that we do is run through the point, line, and polygon. So point, going to be just like having your own personal Google Earth. You can drop a pin, label it, whatever you'd like. And this is going to have that northing and easting and elevation of that point on site. And this is going to exactly match your coordinate system that you guys are using. The next is going to be the line tool. The line tool is really going to drive everything from cross sections to distances, slopes, road grades, all that kind of great stuff. It's very, very simple to do. Click to start, double click to end, you're done, and you're running a cross section. The last thing, which I think does the bulk of our work for most of our customers, is the polygon tool. And that's going to be doing all of the volumetrics. So stockpiles, surface to surface comparisons, surface area, all that stuff is going to be done with that polygon tool. So it's really just going to be a bounding box of where do you want, your measurement done, and then we quickly run that. So this shouldn't be anything new to you guys. But what we try to do is just keep it very simple with the tool set. And that drives us to a few other things.
I want to jump in really quickly right here before we go into the customer stories. If you guys have questions, we've got lots of good ones flowing through already. Just feel free to pop those in the Q&A section. We'll get them answered at the end of this.
Perfect. Thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, so folks, what we're looking at here is a few customer case studies on one, how they've used the product, and then, where they've seen success. So Ohio-based Sunesis Construction used Trimble Stratus to do all their earthwork tracking. The project they were working on consisted of a demolition and then kind of rework of an area. And so what they had was an area where, yes, after the demolition, they didn't really quite understand, how much material they had, where it had to go, and kind of understanding that balance of plant, balance of site kind of operation. So they were quickly and easily able to fly that, run a quick volume of the stockpiles they had on site, and then, start to get an understanding of, okay, here's the design we're going to create, put it into our machines, and from there track, how are we progressing towards that? So the way they did that is using this tool. So this isn't from their site exactly, but this is a kind of an idea or a quick GIF on what we see in the product. So importing those designs, simply taking one of those poly lines, converting that to that polygon measurement. From there, we do a compare to latest design, and it's going to quickly run a calculation of that surface to surface comparison. And then it's going to give us that heat map where you can kind of, from a high level, quickly see, on the far left, this is how much material we moved. And then, granular, we can dive in and hold our mouse over areas and see our cut fill based off of that. So this tool can be used against the design, but it also can be used, against a previous survey. So if you're running billable quantities, things like that, that's where this all comes into play. The next customer that I'm going to talk about is actually a customer of mine in particular. Paul Johnson with Hamm companies to do this processing himself. The problem that it was kind of a problem of success is as Paul pushed more and more data to his team members, they asked for more and more data, which is oftentimes what we see with customers. And so what he had to do is have a dedicated computer to his processing suite. And, as he wanted to increase, so Hamm absorbed a few companies with few aggregate facilities, a few landfills. And so now all of a sudden his book of work got exponentially larger. And so he didn't have time in the day to go and fly and process the data himself. But he didn't have the opportunity to really do any other job other than be the drone guy. And so he came to us through SciTech Central and, came to us and said, hey guys, I have a problem. Everyone loves drone, information. How do I kind of expedite some of this stuff? And that's where we come in here. We've done all the processing for him. He's been a customer now for, I want to say 2 years. On the unlimited plan, flying every day, sometimes again, twice a day, and running a majority of his inventory. So this is a quick look at that stockpile tool. Again, going to be run under that polygon. You simply circle the edge. We use our smart volume tool to catch the toe of the stockpile. And then from there, we're going to get that entire volume of that stockpile. And then if you go one step further, you can actually import some material properties regarding, what you're bringing on site or what you have on site, and go from yardage to tonnage, tonnage to dollars. So you have the ability to do that, spit out a report, and it all done, much quicker than especially walking a stockpile. Oil pad construction company. And as we all know, when it comes to oil pads, it's speed and how fast can I get this done and how quickly can we get off the site and get to the next one. And so these folks, what they had is they had a handful of sites kind of scattered throughout all of West Texas. And they would send a survey crew out. They would go survey that site, take them a half day, and they can only get really 2 sites done in a day. Well, now what we see is these folks take 2 or 3, 4 sites in a day, fly them all, get that baseline topo, whether it's a progress topo, a pre-con topo, of what that looks, something that, let's say if we're doing from mile to mile stations, would take days, if not weeks, depending on how accurate you're doing things. And now you have the ability to fly that with a drone and capture that data much, much faster. as evidence project as far as the data processing side and as well as the data visualization side. So you don't have to have a really beefy computer to view all this stuff. We try to take care of the most of that for you. So you can read and deep dive into each individual one of these. So I think we're getting here to the end where we're going to open it up for questions. I sped through that one a little quick, so we'll have a few more minutes to get this done, or I'll give you a few more minutes back on your time.
Yeah, and it sounds like our audio might have dropped out for a bit at the end there. Do you just want to recap that real quick with Big D?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back here, guys, hopefully this is not me repeating myself, but if it is, bear with me. So yeah, Big D Construction, oil field, an oil pad construction company where speed is paramount. These guys had 4 or 5 sites they'd have to survey in a day, and doing it in a traditional manner just wasn't viable. They'd be able to capture, 2 of the 5 sites in a day, and they were always kind of behind schedule for what, project managers and operation managers were asking for. So they implemented drone solutions to go in and capture more data faster on a more regular cadence in order to make better decisions for bidding, construction of those pads, as well as builts, confirming construction at the end. So what I'm looking at here through that GIF is not a Big D job, but this is a large corridor that would take weeks to survey. You can now do in half the time, if not, a tenth of the time it would normally take, and be able to visualize all that information there. So again, I'll repeat myself here, but this is all around the idea that, we try to take a lot of the heavy lifting around visualization and processing off of your computer and put it in the cloud so that folks using, non-AutoCAD, Business Center like software have the ability to view and make those decisions. So hopefully that was a good enough of a recap here. And I think Kelsey's going to ask a few questions, and then we'll either myself or Jim will take a stab at answering them.
Yeah, so we've got lots of great questions coming through the chat here. Reminder, if you've got some, just pop them in and we'll try and get them answered. So Tom is asking, how does the GCP and drone learn the coordinate system that is being used? Is it part of the post-processing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we get into, especially a localized coordinate system, what we do and that's how we go from, let's say a, WGS 84 or a state plane coordinate system, and get to your localized file. So it's just that JXL, that's the linchpin. That's the biggest, one of the bigger features as far as Trimble Stratus is being able to all of our exports.
Other platforms that offer the same service?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, which, depending on what you're interested in, could really lead us down some rabbit holes. But the big thing with Stratus, in what I see, so one of the things we didn't mention today, which we'll mention in further webinars, is kind of the exports. With file types, the JXLs, and a handful of other feature sets, we bring stuff to the table that, certain folks are very interested in. But I think some of our competitors are more focused around the idea of, just quantity really different. Do that volume, that smart volume measurement, and rather than measuring a quick volume of that hole, out there. So we all right, sorry about that, guys. I seemingly have dropped off.
Hey, Michael, this is Lisa from Trimble, and we are experiencing some audio difficulties, as many of you are aware. So what we will do is we will answer the Q&A via email along with the recording, and we'll be able to answer your questions there. And I know a lot of you are really interested in hearing the questions and learning more about the responses to those questions. So we'll get those sent out shortly. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulty and appreciate you attending. We will conclude the webinar at this point. Thank you.